Did you know that if you take out the oceans and remove all the continents from the world map except Africa, it would be bigger than all the other remaining continents combined? Yes, Africa is bigger than Asia, Europe, North America, and Oceania combined. It is also bigger than the United States, China, and Russia combined. So why then does the Africa map appear so small when compared to the world map? Why is it always hard to find in the world map? Let's find out. Hi, welcome to this channel. Here are 5 reasons why the Africa map is so small on the world map. Number 1. The Mercator projection. Most of us have been taught about the world map, also called the Mercator projection. This is the map that we use to navigate our way around. You can clearly see how the African continent is much smaller on this map when compared to the Asian continent. Now here is a map of Africa, the same Africa that we just saw on the world map, but now placed on the same coordinates as the previous map. Can you see how much bigger it is? That's right. The reason why the map of Africa is so small on the world map is because of something called the Mercator projection. This is the most common type of map that we use today. And yes, it makes some countries or continents look smaller or bigger than they really are. For example, you can also see how Russia looks bigger than the United States on this map. But we all know that the United States is bigger than Russia. When you use a traditional world map like this one, Africa looks much smaller than it really is. According to a recent study, Africa could be up to 3 times larger than Asia. Now that is huge. Number 2. Scale. When you are looking at a map, the size of a country or continent tells you how big it is. If you look at a world map, you will see that the United States takes up a lot of space. We usually measure size by looking at the area of a country or continent. The United States has an area of 9.8 million kilometers squared, while Africa has an area of 30.3 million kilometers squared. That means that Africa is bigger than the United States. In fact, Africa is bigger than all of the continents except for Asia. Asia has an area of 44.6 million square kilometers. To put this into perspective, if you were to place all the African countries next to each other, they would stretch over a distance of 51,000 kilometers. That is the equivalent of walking from London to New York and then going back to London again more than 12 times. Number 3. Shape. The shape of a country or continent can also tell you how big it is. For example, the United States is a pretty big country, but its shape is irregular. This means that it has a lot of nooks and crannies that make it harder to measure. On the other hand, Africa is a pretty regular shape, which makes it easier to measure. Its longest side is about 8,000 kilometers and its shorter side is about 5,000 kilometers. Number 4. Empty spaces. When you look at a world map, you will notice that there are a lot of empty spaces, especially in Africa. These empty spaces are not actually empty. They are just deserts. The Sahara Desert in North Africa is the largest hot desert in the world. It covers an area of 9.2 million square kilometers. That is the equivalent of walking from London to Paris and then going back to London again more than 36 times. The Kalahari Desert in southern Africa covers an area of 900,000 square kilometers. That is the equivalent of walking from London to Madrid and then going back to London again more than 8 times. These deserts make up almost half of Africa's total area. So when you look at a world map, you might think that Africa is a pretty big continent. But in reality, almost half of it is just desert. Number 5. Water bodies. Africa is a very dry continent. There are very few large water bodies on the continent. The largest is the Nile River, which flows for about 6,650 kilometers. That is the equivalent of walking from London to Rome and then going back to London again more than once. There are also a number of large lakes in Africa, such as Lake Victoria and Lake Tanganyika. But these lakes are nowhere near as big as the oceans that surround Africa. The Atlantic Ocean to the west, the Indian Ocean to the east, and the Mediterranean Sea to the north. In fact, the Atlantic Ocean covers more than half of Africa's total coastline. So when you look at a world map, you might think that Africa is a pretty big continent. But in reality, it is surrounded by even bigger water bodies. Now you know that Africa is a huge continent, even though it may seem small on the world map. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.